Hello, everyone. So firstly, I'd just like to thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be part of this event and really privileged to be speaking alongside such brilliant other Go women. So hi, my name's Angelica Hill, and today I'm hoping that I'm going to convince you all that anyone can be a gopher. But first, a little about me. So I'm currently an associate product manager at the New York Times. I work on our Mercury messaging team, building the backend infrastructure for our newsletters, emails, and push notifications. I work predominantly on this in-house messaging platform. We're made up of microservices. We work on GCP. And of course, we're written in Go. I'm a Londoner and a lover of Shakespeare. I've been at the New York Times for about 3 years, and I've been a gopher for about 1.5 years. Before that, I went to Columbia Journalism School and got my master's focusing in cybersecurity, policing, and counterterrorism. Before that, I did my major in English literature and drama, and I attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts to study acting after high school because I wanted to be a Shakespearean actress. Not your average gopher, yet here I am. By the end of this talk, I hope you would have come to the same conclusion that I have. Anyone, even a British liberal arts major who once aspired to be an actress, then an academic, and then a journalist can become a gopher. This talk outlines my motivations and struggles to learn to code and achieve Go competencies during my first year working at the New York Times with the help of several wonderful Go gurus. So, the moment it all began. As I mentioned, I work in product management, and my team was working on refactoring our backend from PHP to Go at the beginning of 2019, wanting to be able to understand the many debates around how to go about this work that my engineers kept having, as well as wanting to gain a degree of credibility with my tech team. And also because I'd always wanted to dive into that wonderful world of web development, I enrolled myself in a 3-month, twice a week after work class for non-developers at the product school. This was a daunting challenge for someone who only a few weeks earlier to this course had gone into the Apple store, gone to the Apple Genius Bar, asking why my laptop wasn't working. The man at the counter then said that I just needed to turn my laptop off and then on again. Embarrassingly, it then worked. But more seriously, it was daunting because I had not started learning from zero for a very long time. Following high school, it was about deepening my knowledge of areas I already knew a lot about, becoming a specialist. This was starting from practically nothing. So the course went through the basic relationships between clients and servers, as well as introducing me to a range of different languages, JavaScript, HTML, Ruby, SQL. I went into the first week thinking that this would be great. It would make me a better product manager. I could talk to my engineers in a more educated way. But from the moment I wrote that first H1 tag, I was hooked. Writing code ignited this fire in me, this excitement. I didn't just want to understand these concepts. I wanted to be able to do them. So I quickly descended into what can only be described as a Google frenzy. I looked up every word I have ever heard a developer say: Ruby on Rails, GCP buckets, spaghetti code, interface. I began Googling the basics of every language I could think of and jumping between various online tutorials. It got to the point where I was creating a JavaScript file in my text editor, writing Ruby, then trying to apply CSS styling to it, and there was some SQL commands thrown in there too. Long story short, I was making no progress. How was I going to learn how to be a software engineer when there was just so much to learn? Where did I even start? It turns out being overexcited can sometimes do far more harm than good. But the one good thing that did come out of this was that I began reaching out to my internal community at the New York Times, some of the communities of practices, the Slack channels, asking questions and meeting people over coffee to ask them questions and get their advice as to how I could start diving in and trying to learn. Another positive that came out of this was that I created an internal Slack channel called Learning to Code at NYT, which I described as a place for beginners to coding, a channel to get advice, resources, and support, and where I could bring in some of the people that I had been talking to help other newbies in the space. This channel blew up in a way I could not have expected. By the end of the first day, it had about 122 people in the channel, and I had the director of engineering email my manager and the CTO about it. We've since had some great feedback about the group, and we now have around 200 members. One of the great comments that I got was this one: learning to code at NYT feeds me in a way the Snack channel never can. You guys are the best. Of course, I was very proud of this group, but personally, I was still flailing. I still had no idea how I could move forward in my personal journey. It was at this point that I met my first Go guru, Marwan. He was a colleague at the New York Times, and he introduced me to Go. He literally seemed to eat, sleep, and breathe Go, so I thought there must be something here. He directed me to the Golang website and started going through the basic concepts. And for the first time in my frantic frenzy, something clicked. I could understand this. I really, really liked Go. Mostly because of the super cute Gophers that I saw everywhere, but also because this was finally a language that I felt like I could read. Syntactically, I could understand it. So I had my language. But now I actually had to learn it. So I looked for help and support to Gopherize myself in the various meetup communities I had. And it was at a Go New York City Women Who Go event that I met my next Go guru, Jonas. She taught me a new way of thinking about programming that was syntax and code second, problem first. So think of something that you want to do, a problem you want to solve, and then think about how the tools Go has provided for you can help you solve it. A function is just a thing you can do that you call when you want to do that thing. It's safe to say, after talking to Jonas, I was fiddling around with functions for about a week, non-stop. So this is my first. It was slightly narcissistic. It was a virtual friend to say hi to me, but it was something. It was coding. Now it was onto slices and maps, not to be confused with dictionaries. The irony being my first program using a map was a map of words to definitions, a dictionary map, as it were. With this next fundamental came another Go guru. Jonas introduced me to Wilkin, who was then running the Go New York City meetup. And he was actually the one who suggested the non-dictionary map to me. He also introduced me to Gopher sizes. Now, the first exercises in Gopher sizes is to create an online quiz. I'm embarrassed to say this is the only exercise I've done to this day, but it did result in about a month creating every single quiz I could think of. Quiz 1, quiz 2, maths quiz, longer quiz, funny quiz, Shakespeare quiz. I could go on. So having potted around with the loads of these online resources, blog posts and YouTube tutorials, I began to feel like what I really needed next was someone to teach me in a more intense period. I had really valued the various email conversations, Slacks, coffees with my various Go gurus, but they were starting to feel like they weren't quite enough for me to progress in my learning. Coincidentally, there was a Women Who Go and Go Bridges Go Fundamentals workshop coming up. So I signed myself up to attend, borrowed a Go t-shirt, wanting to fit in with the crowd, and went. It was there that I met my next Go guru, Johnny, who was running the workshop. The day felt like a real turning point for me. Firstly, because it realized I'd actually learned some stuff. I understood many of the basic concepts. But secondly, and in my opinion, more importantly, I was in a room with fellow newbies, many of whom had been coding for many, many years, but just in different languages. And they were struggling just as much as I had. This made me feel far less self-deprecating because I had been truly worried that I just wasn't smart enough to get any of this stuff. because I was making such slow progress. But it also showed me how much I could learn and accomplish when I immersed myself for a few hours in Go. Following the workshop, I stayed in contact with my Go guru, and he advised that I start thinking about writing some mini projects, giving me the ability to stretch my Go legs and try out some new fun projects, some of the fundamentals. Out of this came 2 programs that I am unbelievably proud of to this day: Ping Pong and Peanut Butter. So this is Ping Pong. This is a program that I described as a program that allows you to play virtual ping pong. But in reality, as you can see, it's 2 channels printing ping and pong, one after the other, to the terminal and counting how many times it did it. Secondly, this is Peanut Butter and Jelly, inspired by my favorite midnight snack, which I described as a program that makes you a virtual peanut butter and jelly sandwich and tells you how long it took. So after a series of these kind of mini projects, I was told by my Go guru that I needed to think bigger. Think of a problem that you want to solve in the real world, and think of an app that you could build to solve that problem. Naturally, I turned to my first love, Shakespeare. I decided to write a program that enabled the user to choose a title and a word from the complete works of Shakespeare, and then the program would tell that user how many times it showed up in each act of the chosen work. This put all the skills I had learnt to the test. It's one thing knowing how to use the fundamentals, but it's a far different story when you have to put them all together and use them at once. After about a week obsessively coding in the morning, the evening, before and after work, as well as a few lunch breaks, I finished the program. However, 1, it only worked in the terminal, and 2, it was over 800 lines of code long, and frankly, a bit of a mess. Hence why you will not be seeing screenshots of it today or ever. This is where my next Go guru came in, Bailey, who I met at a Women Who Go workshop. She advised I go through the code and look at the places where I had repeated myself and try to write functions that I could call repeatedly to clean up the code. She also advised I looked into channels and Go routines. Now, this substantially improved my code. However, I ended up going a little bit crazy with the Go routines and channels. Once I was finished, I had a total of 189 channels and Go routines. To give you an idea, this is after I took all the sonnets out. There's about 154 sonnets. Apparently, it takes about 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. I would say I'm pretty close when it comes to Go routines and channels, definitely when it comes to copy-paste. But as you can see, this caused me a lot of issues. Turning back to my first Go guru, I got a nugget of knowledge that changed everything. You can have one channel and send all the information to that one channel. The feeling of satisfaction when I deleted those 35 channels was amazing. So I'd refactored my code. I was pretty happy with where it was, but now I wanted to turn it into a usable web application that I could run on a local host. Bailey and various YouTubers were my gurus here. I looked at blogs, inspected web pages I admired, and read all the documentation I could find on the net HTTP package before diving into development. Once I finally got it working, showing up on localhost 8080, I asked my Go guru Bailey to give me a code review. I wanted her to look at my code. She asked me to put it on GitHub. Now, I'd never used GitHub before. I'd never learned about Git, branches, or anything like that. So this enabled me to step away from Go and learn some developer best practices around PRs, but I won't go into that right now. That was a whole other journey. But I did it, created my first PR, got my first review, issue report, went through the process of creating a PR and updating my app. So I had a program with its basic client-server relationship sorted. Now I needed to give it a front end. My Go gurus had all been so helpful thus far, naturally, I turned back to the Go community. It was at another meetup that I met Anthony, who did a lightning talk on the SVG package. he had developed, and then got coffee afterwards. He spoke to me about front and back end languages, how Go could be integrated with HTML, CSS, and really set me on the path to start creating my own front end. And it enabled me to learn 2 new languages, HTML and CSS. Now, learning HTML and CSS was easier than Go. Not because they are easier languages to learn, but because at this point I had learned not to second guess myself. Just dive in, and if you need help, ask. There are so many people around you that would be willing to help. I ended up writing a simple HTML CSS static file, as well as some inline HTML for this part. But I look forward to diving into the SVG package in the future. And this is how it turned out. My first app. This was my first big milestone in my quest to Gopherize. I was so proud. I think the week that I finished this, every single person I spoke to had to have a go and go through my app. So as I moved along the road to become a Gopher, I started trying to collaborate and coordinate and really contribute to my team. I took on the task of deleting data following GDPR requests, as well as attending the engineering working sessions, and I even started taking on a few minor tickets. This was my first screenshot here. It was only a 1-line change, but it was a ticket that I picked up from the queue, created a branch for, a PR that my team approved, and I got it merged and done. I also began trying to contribute more directly to the Go community. I hosted my first Go New York City meetup in November 2019, a Women Who Go Intro to Go 2-day workshop, which I helped teach in February 2020. And I now help co-lead our internal Golang group at the New York Times. I'm an event coordinator for the global GDN, and I'm a panelist on Go Time. Some of you might have heard me there. So now the big question, was it worth it? Is it still worth all my time and energy to continue my quest to Gopherize? This journey has been wonderful thus far, filled with challenges to overcome, wonderfully welcoming people, and helpful resources to turn to. However, it was and continues to be extremely challenging for a number of reasons. Firstly, because writing Go or any kind of software engineering isn't my job. Therefore, I can't dedicate the amount of time I want to it. Secondly, there is the crippling imposter syndrome. I have no computer science background. I stopped taking maths at 16, and I have this image in my brain of what a software engineer is that, frankly, I just don't fit with. And there are many times that I've doubted myself. I've literally cried because I didn't understand something. I came to New York from London with no real community, no friends, no family. I did my master's at Columbia, built up a community there, but then everyone left when we graduated. I then started a new job and began trying to build a community there, trying to find my people. But it wasn't until I found the Go community that I really got that sense that these could be my people. This was a community that I wanted to invest my time in being a part of. Hence the tears when I had those moments of doubt, because I was terrified of losing that feeling of belonging. It has been these moments that have reminded me just how valuable the Go community and my Go gurus are to me. They encourage me to carry on, not give up, and helped give me those action items, those next steps to help me progress in my career and progress in my learning. Now, I'm going to take a few moments for the veterans in the room, the potential Go gurus. I want to talk to you a little bit about why I was so grateful for the way that the Go gurus that I had helped me, and more notably, how they helped me. Throughout my journey, I've spoken to a lot of colleagues and friends, brilliant developers who expressed the desire to help others to learn code, but they didn't know how to do it, or they worried that they wouldn't be any good at helping others or teaching them. What I would say to those who are watching, who are willing and want to help newbies, first, thank you. And secondly, don't worry if you don't feel like you're any good at teaching, just by giving up some of your time to let someone talk through a problem that they're experiencing, a concept that they're struggling with, or just sitting next to them and helping them debug something, you're making a huge difference. Some of the most beneficial conversations I've had with my Go Gurus have not been me sitting and listening to them, writing notes. It's been me trying to figure out a problem with them, talking it through with them, asking them questions, and then having my guru lead me in the right direction. So this is my first top tip to you Go Gurus. Don't just tell your newbie the answer, guide them, help them come to the conclusion themselves. A simple example of this is the following. This is something I did myself. So when newbie me came to my Go Guru asking why was this not working, I didn't understand what the issue was. It looked great to me. My Go Guru could have just turned to me and said, Angelica, you just need to remove the string after the bracket. However, although this would have made me very happy, I would have run my program, it would have worked, or would have been great. I wouldn't have understood why it wasn't working. And inevitably, I would have ended up seeing this issue again later. Instead, my Go Guru first asked me to hover over the area highlighted in red and read the error out loud. Missing return at end of function. And then had me explain line by line what the function I was creating was doing. This is a function called greetMe that takes a string, which I have chosen to call name, and returns a string, which will be the program saying hello to whatever name I give it. In this case, Angelica. My Go Guru then asked me what I meant by return and what the program meant by return. This is where the learning came in. Through this conversation, I realized the program wasn't returning anything to the user. It was printing a statement in the terminal. Therefore, that was why the second string wasn't needed. It would have been far easier for my Go Guru to just tell me the answer. However, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to really feel like I'd worked it out myself and truly understand how the function was working. So, this is the first top tip. Guide your newbie, but don't tell them the answer. Let it be a guided process where they feel like they're working it out themselves. Also, this may not be the case for everyone, but I found reading out my code line by line when there was an issue crazy helpful, especially when debugging. Second top tip is when you're working with one mentor or perhaps a small group, someone who's new to the language or a junior developer on your team, whoever it is, assume they know nothing and then start out where their knowledge is from there. So what I mean by this is explicitly state at the beginning of a conversation with, for example, a newbie, I'm going to assume you know nothing and start from the absolute basics so that I can see where you're at and start from there. Do you understand the relationship between a client and a server and the difference between front and back end languages? So this is great because it enables your mentee to feel empowered to tell you what they do understand. It's a positive affirmation of their knowledge. And it also mediates that fear of them having to ask stupid questions because they've begun speaking to you at a level that they feel comfortable at. In keeping with this, something that I really appreciated whenever I was working with a Go Guru, even if I was working with them for a few months and we knew each other pretty well, if I encountered an issue, a bug, they would always check in with me on the basics before diving into debugging. So, for example, they'd say something like, okay, Angelica, the error that you're encountering has something to do with this pointer. Do you feel like you still have a good grasp of pointers, or do you want me to explain the basic concept for you now, and then we can dive into your specific issue? I really appreciated this. My third and final tip is to try and keep your mentee moving forward. This might be setting check-ins to talk every week over coffee or Zoom, or maybe you send each other email updates. This is great for two reasons. Firstly, because it gives your mentee that feeling that they are truly supported. They have someone that they can reach out to whenever they have issues, and they have regular touch points to check in with you. Secondly, it incentivizes them to keep learning and making time to progress. This is especially important for people like myself who are learning Go or other languages in their free time. Because if I have a check-in with my mentor every Friday, I don't want to check in with them every week and they ask me, have you made any progress? And I just twiddle my thumbs and say no. I'm incentivized to move forward. The next level of this is to kind of set deadlines and set homework almost for your mentees. This is great for people like me. I love homework and clear deadlines, but this is really going to be a case-by-case basis. I could go on and on about all the great things that my Go Gurus did for me. They saved me from giving up many times, but I'll leave it at that for now. The main thing is just to be there for them. Being a sounding board for their ideas, someone to turn to for guidance, someone they can vent to when they're frustrated or don't understand something. As I said, I've become very frustrated and cried a lot over Go, more than I'd like to admit, and it was my Go Gurus that made me feel like that was okay. Frustration is normal when you're learning something new. Some great resources that I found helpful to go through with my Go Gurus were Go Playground, Go Wiki, Go Tour, Go for Sizes, as well as attending Go conferences together and watching old Go conference talks and then talking them through together, going through the content video by video, and then kind of seeing whether it was something I understood, if I had more questions. This was really valuable. So not only have I met some aspiring Go Gurus who wanted to help people learn, I've also met many people wanting to build a more diverse, welcoming community of Gophers. And to them, I have given one top tip, and that is to talk to as many people as possible in your local development communities, at work, meetups you attend, parties you go to, about what Go has given you. Paint a picture of the wonderful community we have and literally say, anyone is welcome of all levels, experiences. It's a community that will support you no matter what stage of your life or career you're at. That's what I've been doing. And slowly but surely, I've brought some brilliant women, minorities, and underrepresented individuals into this community simply by being honest about what Go has given me, as well as identifying myself as someone willing to help and answer any questions they have. This goes hand in hand in trying to change not just the stereotypical perception of what it means to be a Gopher, but a software engineer in general. Now, I know that was a lot. So if you only take 3 things away, all you aspiring Go Gurus, let them be this. 1, offer to help whenever possible, in whatever way the individual needs. A study buddy, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to go over the PRs, or just someone to turn to when they feel frustrated. 2, don't tell your newbie the answer. Guide them and help them come to the conclusion themselves. And 3, use your voice. Just by stating out loud, the Go community is open to anyone. We welcome anyone. You can make a huge impact in the way people perceive the community. And if you say it enough, maybe we can make it a reality. Turning back to you aspiring Gophers and Go newbies, here are your 3 takeaways. 1, truly anyone can be a Gopher. It doesn't matter your background or how technical you think you are. If you get that rush of happiness, that fire in your belly, that excitement learning Go, you can do it. Secondly, it's not going to be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. It's going to be hard work, but I promise you it will be worth it in the end. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for help from anyone and everyone. You are surrounded by Go Gurus willing to help, your colleagues, your teammates, the people talking at this event. My first Go conference was Gotham Go in 2019. I saw Johnny Busica speak, emailed him right afterwards, and we got virtual coffee. I then chatted to him as a mentor, as a Go Guru. My first conversation with him began by me asking, what's a variable and how do I get it to print to the terminal? In fact, what even is a terminal? My most recent conversation with him was as a fellow panelist on Go Time. So I hope you found this whistle-stop tour at least moderately entertaining and helpful. I hope you've seen that my Go Gurus along the way have been essential in me feeling motivated to keep going, not giving up, as well as having the confidence to push forward. And for all you non-newbies, you truly can change someone's life by helping them along their Go journey and being a Go Guru just willing to help. Thank you.
So a couple of questions that I have personally.
Sure.
So you mentioned a lot about Go Guru. So I was wondering if someone out there if you have any tips or advice for people who are looking for mentors. So I think earlier you were sharing that most of them you attended community events and then you reached out to them for virtual coffee or you met them afterwards. So maybe to someone who is looking for a mentor to help them grow even more in their skills, what are some tips you have?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that's the first thing. Like, you attend meetups, you see people talk. That is a very clear, like, open door to email them. So I know there's like an apprehension. Maybe there's someone in the community you admire, you like, but you don't want to just like send them a Slack or an email with no reason. So what I always do is, if I've seen someone talk at a meetup, or even honestly, if there's someone I admire on Twitter or something like that, I'll maybe like watch a YouTube video of a past Gopher conference they've done. And then I'll email them saying, hi, I'm Angelica. I watched your conference talk. I found it really interesting. I would love to grab coffee with you to talk more about this topic. You then have the coffee, get to know them. And then honestly, it kind of evolves from there. At the end of my coffees, I usually will say very honestly, like, I'm very new to Go, but I would love to learn from you. Can we maybe set up bi-weekly coffees for half an hour to chat through a few questions I have, a few concepts? Some people will then just have, informal coffees every few weeks, and I'll just ask them random questions that are on my mind. And some, honestly, I'll start talking to them, and then I'll ask, would you mind if we set up a little bit more of a formal teaching schedule? People like Johnny, or others who already do teaching in the community, I say like, hi, I would love to be a guinea pig. I would love to kind of practice learning from any new material you're thinking of putting together. And then it kind of evolves from there. But I would say that's the tip. Like, really, don't feel apprehensive about reaching out to anyone you might think of as being a possible Go Guru. Just find an excuse, like find a YouTube video they've done, even if it's like 10 years ago. And just like, hey, I came across your video, loved it. Always start with a compliment, and then, hey, let's grab coffee.
Wow, yeah, that's really great tips. Thanks for sharing. And back to your personal journey, right? So if you could redo it all over again, like, I think earlier you were sharing that you were learning a lot of different languages, and then you came across Go. So if you could just redo it, what would you do differently? Or what are some advice you have for people out there who might not have programming background, but they are interested to learn?
So honestly, and this is more difficult to do than it is to be just like say it now, but just diving in and being far more confident in being new. So now I'm very open when I don't know things. I'm like, I'm new, I don't know this, please help. But at the beginning, I think, and this touches a little bit on the imposter syndrome, because, I was a product manager working at the New York Times. I was, pretty good at what I did. The idea of then having to admit, like, I don't know this was scary. And that is very scary, especially if you're, we're in a competitive world where, very ambitious people. I think if I could do it again, I would have been more honest and open about, like, I know nothing, please help. Because I think I would have then got Go Gurus much earlier on. That being said, that lesson in itself, just like learning that it's okay to be new and not know stuff, was hugely valuable. And so I guess I'm kind of going back on the answer. Like, I wouldn't change it because I learned that, and I think that's a great lesson to learn.